Good morning. Welcome to you guys. My name is Mark. If we have not yet met, and it's good to be here with you. For those of you that are joining us online, special welcome to you as well. If you would, let us know where you're watching from, and if you have any questions or prayer requests, our digital ministry team is standing by to be able to interact with you. We're just glad that you're able to join us today. And it's so good to be back. My bride and I, it's been over a year since we've actually been able to take a vacation together. And so we went up to Blue Ridge, Georgia. Anybody been to Blue Ridge, Georgia? Beautiful place to be, beautiful place to hang out. And it's interesting, we discovered there some of what we see here, which is, for instance, when you check into the hotel and when you're there, they don't come and clean your room every day. I don't know if you guys realize things have changed because a lot of people aren't going back into those positions anymore. And so, you have to request if you want your room cleaned. Otherwise, they wait until you check out. It's a little different. Restaurants, they're a little light on help, so the people that are working, sometimes they're a little overwhelmed because there are a lot of people that haven't come back in the restaurant industry. We see the same thing here too, don't we? And I don't know if you guys realize this, but there's something that is a phenomenon that was predicted back in May of 2021 called, that sociologists and economists are calling the Great Resignation. Truth. A lot of people during the pandemic began to examine their lives and their work life and going, is this the life that I want to continue living? Or do I need to make a change in what I'm doing? They not only call it the Great Resignation, they call it the Big Quit. True. And we really saw this begin to take off in August. In August, 4 million people quit their jobs. Okay, and then in September, 4.3 million quit their jobs, and in October, 4.4 million people quit their jobs. And what's happening is people are going, I want to make sure that I have a healthy work-life balance. I want to make sure that what I'm giving myself to is meaningful and it's important to me. And so a lot of people have done a lot of reflection. Some of you are probably in a place where you're transitioning, maybe careers, maybe with moving, but there's a lot of transitioning that is going on. And if you're in a place of transition, I want you to lean in to what we talk about today, because if you add this to the equation of what it is that you're stepping into, it becomes a game changer. This becomes the big game changer. And for those of you that are like, well, I'm retired, I don't have to worry about that. I'm living here. I'm telling you, what we talk about today is the difference between people who are able to make a difference in the world and people who do not. What we talk about today is a major shift in mindset. Now, those that understand this, understand that there's something that God has entrusted to you and to you alone. Something that He has entrusted to you. And people who understand what God has entrusted to them, they live their lives very differently than people who don't understand. And what we're going to talk about today is what God has actually entrusted to you, to your care. Now, here's the deal. Don't look at this as a burden. This is the greatest opportunity for any human being. This transforms the way you relate to work. This transforms the way you relate to your social circles. This transforms the way you relate to people that you report to, or people that you oversee, or people that you go to school with. This mindset is the thing that literally transforms your life from just going through life and being able to experience God's purpose and the very reason for which you were created. So what we're talking about today is probably one of the biggest things that you will ever hear. And it's perfect as we talk about what is my role in this thing called the kingdom of God, heaven on earth. What is my role? Here's what we're going to learn. We're going to learn from the Apostle Paul. The Apostle Paul, he gives us a mindset and a perspective that is very unique and is very telling. And what he's doing is he's interacting with some people. Some people are thinking, hey, we're better than the Apostle Paul, of all things to kind of boast over. And Paul is just kind of laying things on the line. And don't worry about the argument as much as the mindset. Focus in on the mindset. And take a look at what he says. 2 Corinthians 10:13. Says, we, however, will not boast beyond proper limits. You guys can boast about how great you are and all that stuff is what he's saying. He said, but we will confine our boasting to the, check this out, sphere of service God himself has assigned to us. A sphere that also includes you. A sphere of service. Say sphere of service. Sphere of service. Everyone has a sphere of service or a sphere of influence, sometimes we talk about. Sometimes we like to relate to an understanding of the realm of our influence, like we talk about a circle of friends, right? Everyone's got a circle of friends, but he calls it a sphere of influence. And I like the idea of a sphere. And here's why, because in your sphere of influence, there are people that maybe they have more education than you, maybe some have less education than you, and there are others who have the same education. There are those with more experience than you, some with less experience than you, some with the same level of experience as you have. Some people might have more money, some people have less money, some people about the same. Some people outrank you, so to speak, at work. Some people are under your supervision and other people stand next to you. Think of your life as a sphere. God has entrusted, literally, Paul says, he himself has assigned to you a sphere. He has assigned that to each one. Every single follower of Jesus Christ has a sphere of influence, a sphere of service that God himself assigned to you. And there may be overlap between your sphere and my sphere, but only you can take care of the sphere of influence that God has assigned to you. Now, here's the deal. Some people understand this. Some people who profess to be followers of Christ, they don't get this at all. And they miss out on the very reason for which they exist and the purpose for which God has called them into relationship. See, a person who understands this suddenly realizes, wow, there are these people, a sphere that you have assigned to me, God. And what I inject into this sphere, whatever ideas, thoughts, attitudes I bring into the sphere affects what everybody inside my sphere experiences when they experience me. And see, I can inject into this toxic, harsh attitudes, judgmental ideas. And what happens is we can actually shrink our sphere over time with toxic and harsh attitudes. Because what happens is over time that my way of expressing myself, my opinions, all of those things either invite people into the sphere or push them out. The things that I post, the opinions that I express, the way that I express myself, those can affect whether my sphere shrinks to the point where the only people in my sphere are people that look like me, think like me, and vote like me. And those are the same people that will feed on the same toxic, harsh attitudes that I'm injecting into the sphere. And what happens is, if that's what your sphere of influence looks like, your world is too small and you're losing it. Now, here's the good news. With God, it's never too late to start over. Right? With God, it's never too late to go, guys, I'm so sorry for the way that I've been. Guys, I want God to do something in my life. And it's never too late to start over again. So what is it that you and I have to do to begin to live a life that is going to make a difference? Where literally, when we say, God, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. God, I want to pursue your will for my life of how I am to allow you to be expressed through me. First thing is that we all have to do is this. I've got to take ownership of my sphere. You have to take ownership of your sphere. You've got to realize that the people that are in your life have been entrusted to you. They've been assigned to you. See, that's a mind shift. Some people just go through life just kind of like la, 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 la. Don't think about it. But the fact is God wants to bring heaven on earth through you. And in order to do that, you have to take ownership of your influence. You have to realize, I'm not here to spout off about all these other things. I am here to help people to see something. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But first thing you gotta do is you gotta say, God, this is my sphere. Who makes up my sphere? Who makes up your sphere of influence? Here's a list of who is in your sphere of influence. First of all, you've got people that are in there in the marketplace. The marketplace are the people that you do business with. Buying, selling. Anytime you have a transaction with somebody, there's an opportunity to go, man, that was a great deal. I really enjoyed doing business with you. Thank you for taking care of us. Hey, that was great. Can I just ask you a question? How's your heart doing? Huh? Yeah, how are you? I've really enjoyed this with you. How are you doing? And I mean, really, how are you doing? And all of a sudden, you've now become the pastor, the minister over the sphere that God has assigned to you. Like Paul, you've taken ownership of it. So the marketplace where you do your buying and selling, your clients, the people that you are in business with, doing deals with, people that you're serving, all of those people, those are all a part of the sphere that is assigned to you. Marketplace ministry is a massive opportunity. For those of you that are business owners, I've seen this done so many different ways. One company right here in town, Hideaway Storage, when you order a storage unit and they come and deliver a portable on-demand storage, they thank you for your business and they say, by the way, we have resources for people that we just like to say thank you with. And they've got things about how to have a healthy marriage. They got all kinds of resources that they give you. What are they doing? They're taking ownership of the sphere that is assigned to them. You have to do the same thing. I have to do the same thing. Marketplace ministry is huge. Other than marketplace, what else? Your coworkers, the people that you work side by side with, the conversations that you have at the water cooler, the opinions that you state, and especially how you state them. You're either injecting something that is good into the atmosphere of your sphere, or you're making it toxic. You want to take ownership and go, I want to make sure that even if I'm having a bad day at work, that the way that they see me respond and the way they hear me talk reflects something better, something that reflects my relationship with Jesus, right? So your coworkers, not only that, but your family. And this is hard because your family, they're crazy. I know, it's been Thanksgiving. I know, that's why we eat so much. Comfort me, please. It's hardest with your own family, but it matters how you have discussions and what you say when you take ownership of the sphere that, as Paul said, that God himself assigned to you. Your friends, even your social networks on social media. That's a great opportunity to take ownership of the sphere and look at what you're injecting into the atmosphere of your sphere. Your friends, the people you have hobbies with, that you're just doing life together. Your classmates, man, your classmates. You know, there are so many students who have never heard that there's a God who loves them. There's a lot of students, a lot of people, students and adults, who have no idea that there are churches that are life-giving because it's focused on the grace of God. They don't know it. They don't know there's a God who loves them. They don't know there's a reason for Jubilee. They've never heard of it. I grew up not hearing it. So your classmates, your neighbors. And so the first thing that you and I have to do is you've got to take ownership. I've got to take ownership of the sphere assigned to me by God himself. That's what you do. And one of those places that is sometimes a random assignment. You ever have this happen where maybe you're going down the road and you see somebody broke down and you just have this feeling, I'm supposed to be the one to help them, nobody else is? Or you see somebody struggling maybe at the grocery store and you have this sense, I'm supposed to be the one to help them. How many of you have ever had that kind of a random act of kindness? That's the way other people see it. We know it's not really random, right? Listen to this, these random acts of kindness. We'll talk about how to do that in a moment, but here's the deal. Is your heart even open for that sort of thing? Let me tell you an example of where this happened. So, do you guys know the magicians, Penn and Teller? Comedy magician team? We got pictures of them. Penn Jillette is the big guy. Penn Jillette is one of the most militant, aggressive atheists that you'll ever hear. And Penn Jillette did a show in Las Vegas. Now, he did a video after this event happened. And just listen to the words that he shared. It says that afterwards, a man walked over to him and complimented him on the show and handed him a New Testament. And the guy said this, hey, I wrote in front of it, I wanted you to have this. I'm kind of proselytizing. Now, that's not a word a lot of us use. Proselytizing means I'm sharing my faith with you, okay? And then he said, I'm a businessman. I'm sane. I'm not crazy. And he looked at me right in the eyes. And here's what Penn Jillette said. It was wonderful, really. He goes, I believe he knew I was an atheist, but he was not defensive. He looked me right in the eyes, and he was truly complimentary. It didn't seem like empty flattery. He was nice, he was sane, he talked to me. And he said, how much do you have to hate somebody to not share your faith? How much do you have to hate somebody to believe that everlasting life is possible and not tell them about it? And then he goes on to say, and this guy was really a good guy. He was polite and honest. And he said, he put a note in the Bible and it said, liked your show. And then he listed 5 phone numbers and an email address in case I wanted to get in touch with him. And here's how he summarizes that. He said, now I know there is no God. And one polite person living his life right doesn't change that. But I'll tell you, he was a very, very, very good man, and that's really important. And with that kind of goodness, it's okay to have this kind of a deep disagreement. I still think religion does a lot of bad stuff, but that was a good man who gave me that book. That's all I wanted to say, Penn Jillette said. And that was the end of his video. So sometimes there are these random assignments that God has for you as you take ownership of the sphere of influence and service that he has assigned to you. But the question is, how do we do that? How can we position ourselves as followers of Jesus Christ? And by the way, for those of you that are not followers of Jesus Christ, I want you to know this is the sweet spot. This is where the sense of living your life with a sense of purpose, knowing that you're living the life that you were created for, happens. This is where discovering what it is to make a difference and watch people's lives get transformed, this is where it begins. And so when you take the step of faith, this is what's waiting for you. So how do we do this? How do we position ourselves? Here's the second thing that we've got to learn to do. We've got to cultivate a slow down spirituality. I don't know about you guys, but when I wake up in the morning, there's at least 2 voices in my head. One voice is the voice of God inviting me to take some time with him, to pray, to just present myself to him for that day. But the other voice is much louder, and it's the to-do list that is yelling at me everything that I need to get done. And if I get out of bed sooner and jump on it, I can get ahead of the day. Does anybody else have this problem in the morning? Am I the only one that's crazy? Okay, so you guys, we all experience the same thing. Here's my problem. When I get out of bed and I've got my to-do list and I'm going and I'm going and I'm going and I'm going, that list is pretty tight. and I go from one thing to the next. For those of you that have to get kids ready in the morning for school, you understand this, right? You have to get it done. But what happens is when we operate like that, we actually miss opportunities because we don't just turn it off. We go through that all day. And then we do it again the next day. And we do it again the next day. And what I have to do is I have to embrace a slow down spirituality. By the way, that's not a term original to me. Peter Scazzero wrote a book called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And this is his phrase, slow down spirituality. Let me tell you what it feels like. So here's what slow down spirituality is. It's a palm up prayer. So go palms up, just palms up. Just work with me here, okay? Palms up. Take a deep breath. Whatever you want to do today, God, I'm yours. Open my eyes. Help me to see any assignments that you have for me today. That's it. Slowing down, not letting crying kids make me rush on with my day, not letting distractions pull me away. But I've got to learn this. I've got to learn this. Because what happens is, if when I don't do this, I just kind of blow through the day, and I look back, and I can't remember anything that I did that really had anything to do with impacting somebody's life whom God has entrusted into my sphere. And I don't want to do that. Matter of fact, back in the 70s, Princeton Seminary did an experiment. This was so good. In the 70s, what they did was they took seminary students and they assigned them to teach the parable of the Good Samaritan. Pastor Lucas preached on this not that long ago, just so that everybody understands. The parable of the Good Samaritan was this. So a guy gets beaten up and robbed and left for dead on the side of the road, okay? Many of you know this. The first guy that walks by is like an expert in the Bible, and he sees the dude, and he's like, oh, I don't want anything to do with him. I got too much to do, right? So he walks on past. The next guy that comes along is a priest, and a priest goes, ooh, I don't want anything to do with that, and he keeps making his way. And the third guy that comes along is somebody that everybody hated. He was a Samaritan, which meant he was a compromising, half-breed, compromised faith dude that had no business living his life under a blessing of God. That's how they would have looked at him. But the Samaritan is when it sees the guy, and he goes and he rescues him, and he bandages him up, and he puts him on his donkey, and he takes him to an inn, and he tells the owner of the inn, take care of his needs. Whatever it ends up costing, I'll come back and I'm gonna pay for it. And he's the good guy, obviously, in the story. And so what they did was they said to these seminary students, they said, we want you guys to preach on the parable of the Good Samaritan. Now, here's what you're going to do. You're going to have to go down the alley to the studio that's right at the end of the alley here. And when you go to the studio, you're going to preach your sermon. Some people are going to observe the sermon, and they're going to give you some feedback. So that's what we want you to do. Now, that's the way they set it up. And here's what they did. They told some of those seminary students this, hey, you're late. They were expecting you a few minutes ago. You'd better hurry. It shouldn't take but just a minute. Now, they were called the high hurry group, okay? So with a different group, what they would do is they said, hey, the studio assistant is ready for you, so please go right over. And this is called the intermediate hurry group. And then there was a third group, and to those guys, they would say, it'll be a few minutes before they're ready for you, but you may as well head on over now. You might have to wait for a little bit, but it shouldn't take that long. And that was called the low hurry group. And here's what they did. In between the building that they were in and the studio, they planted a victim, a person who looked like the character in the parable. He was actually an associate, but he appeared destitute. He was slouched, he was coughing, and he was clearly in need of assistance. And in order to get to the studio, each one of those seminary students had to walk past him. And here's what they found. That of the people in the high hurry group, you better get over there, only 10% stopped to help. Of the people in the intermediate hurry group, 45% of them stopped to help. And in the group that had plenty of time, 63% of them stopped to help. And what it showed was this, is that even though everybody agreed with the parable and the values that Jesus was teaching, the only people that actually lived it out were the people who learned to slow down. And what was true there is true for you, and it's true for me. And for you and I to not miss any assignment in the sphere that has been assigned to you by God himself, you and I have got to learn. Whatever you want to do today, God, I'm yours. And in that slow down spirituality, that means I'm going to take some time, whether it's what we call a devotional, which is maybe a little booklet that talks about a scripture, or maybe it's reading the scriptures themselves. Here's what happens. The more you get the word of God in your mind, the more your heart gets in tune with the will of God. The more that you take in the word of God, the more your heart gets in tune with the voice of God. And now there are those random assignments that God can assign you and me when we're going through our day, and he's like, this one's yours. I want you to help. And so that's what we do. And so that slow down spirituality, guys, that's so important. By the way, one of the things that we do as pastors to help you with this, how many of you have gone to the website and in the messages section of the website have seen the Engage page, or you have printed it out or read it? See, a lot of you have not yet. Most of you have not. What's the Engage page? Pastor Lucas and I and whoever is speaking that day, whenever we speak, what we do is we put together an Engage page, which is a page that you could go to during the week. We have small groups that use the Engage page in order to talk about and to reflect upon and to apply what is taught by Jesus and in the scriptures. And so the Engage page is a way that you can go deeper, and it helps you to slow down during the week, to take it out and to read it or to pull it up online and to take a question or two a day. What's that for? That's to help you to slow down and to think about the fact that God has assigned a sphere to you. Don't be in a hurry. Don't rush through. It's a way of feeding yourself. By the way, you understand that feeding yourself, like if you feel like I'm not being fed, you realize you have to actually lift up the spoon and right? Yeah, everybody understands that? You gotta, good. So that's how you get fed, is you slow down and you learn it. We all can do better at that. Cultivate a slow down spirituality. And then what do? I mean, I've never been trained, right? I don't know what to do. How am I gonna know what to do? Listen, if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, you have absolutely everything you need, and I'm telling you that. You've got the love of God living in you. You've got the Holy Spirit living in you. And God will show you what to do. Here's what you do. Listen, the third thing is this. All you have to do is focus on this. I want to show what God's goodness looks like. That's what you do. When you are the pastor, the minister, by the way, if you're a follower of Jesus Christ, do you know that you are a minister? Okay, a lot of you didn't know that. If you are a follower of Jesus Christ, you are a minister. You're in ministry. And God has assigned to you a sphere of people to take care of and to minister to. These are the people he's entrusting to your care. And as a minister, what you want to do is show them the goodness of God. I love what Peter wrote here, 1 Peter 2:9. I showed this to you a few weeks ago. He says, you are a chosen people. You are royal priest. That is, your priests of the king. You're a priest. You want to do something really weird? Say this out loud. I'm a priest. Does that feel weird? A little weird, but it's true. You're a priest. You're a minister. You're a pastor. God has entrusted a flock to you called your sphere. He says, you are you're a royal priest, you're a holy nation, you're God's very own possession, which I love because you understand, like when your kids and your grandkids do something good, don't you go, oh man, I'm so glad they're my kid. Oh man, I'm so glad that's my grandkid. You know something? When you take ownership of the sphere that God himself has assigned to you, and when you begin to care for the people that he has entrusted to your care, you know what God's doing? That's my kid. Do you see that? See what they did? They get it. Heaven on earth through them. They get it. And God's like, you are my very own possession. I'm so glad you belong to me. I'm so glad. And he says, as a result, you can show others the vicious anger and judgment of God. Oh, I'm sorry, I misread that. You can show others the what? The goodness of God. Now, does that mean, what does that mean? Well, that means you want to show them the goodness of God. Might you talk about hell? Sure you might, because the goodness of God is even though we all deserve hell, Jesus loves us so much that he took the penalty for our sins so we don't have to go there. It's the goodness of God. But he says this is like the primary job that you have to take care of the sphere that God has assigned to you is show the goodness of God. That's what you do. Help people to see what the love of God looks like by the way you love them. Help people to hear your story of how God changed your life, how he gave you hope in a dark time. Let people hear it. Show the goodness of God. Encourage them when they feel like they're worthless about the fact that God says they're worth dying for. Jesus did it. You show forth the goodness of God. Show the goodness of God through your generosity, through your kindness. And all of a sudden you realize I don't have to inject all my toxic opinions into the atmosphere of my sphere. Actually, my sphere can grow when I'm here to show the goodness of God. It's a whole different life. And I'm going to tell you guys, there's nothing more exciting, more fulfilling than to be able to do that and to understand that God has entrusted to you something so precious to him because there's something he wants to do through you, and that's to show his goodness through you. Hey, we got a way that we want to make that real practical for you guys too. So when you came in, how many of you got the Big Tip Challenge cards? Okay, so they were in baskets when you came in. We're gonna have these available out there all through the holidays. Now, how many of you were a part of us when we did this a few years ago? Big Tip Challenge. Let me tell you what this is. So on one side, of course, you got Benjamin Franklin, says Big Tip Challenge. On the back side, here's what it says. You are loved, you matter to God, you are not alone. And then the church information. How do you use this? Real simple. When I go to a restaurant, if the bill is $50, I tip $50. Whatever the bill is, you tip that same amount. You go, what, are you crazy? What if I got lousy service? Well, first of all, you should be glad that they showed up for work because a lot of people aren't doing it anymore. And here's the other thing. Giving people a big tip is not about who they are or what they did. It's about who you are. It's about who you are as a minister of the sphere assigned to you. It's about what Jesus did for all of us. And we're just letting the goodness of God come out. Now, you may be in a situation where it's like, what do I do with the cashier at the grocery store? Put a card together. Just put $10 there. Say, I just want to say thank you. I always pick your line. I love it, what you do. You put the card in, and then you put in the big tip challenge, and you give it to them. You know who my first people were? Henry and Chris. You go, who's Henry and Chris? Henry and Chris. Henry drives the garbage truck. Chris is the guy that takes the trash out of my can. You go, you know your garbage man? I know my garbage man. I don't know my mailman yet. How many of you know your mailman? Perfect, your mailman, right? And what I did is I just put these in two separate cards, one for Henry, one for Chris. I said, I hope this makes Thanksgiving and Christmas a little brighter for you. Signed it with my name and my bride's name, put the card in, and gave them a gift cards in there. And then I taped it inside the garbage can where only the person lifting the lid would be able to find it. Don't put it on the outside of your garbage can. There's a lot of nasty people out there. Go and take it. God will show you. And what happens is, all of a sudden people see the goodness of God. Listen, when we did this a few years ago, we got calls. We heard from a restaurant over on 14th Street, said, you are changing our team. You have no idea. Because what was happening is multiple people were doing the same thing. We got a call from one of the restaurants nearby. Actually, conversation was a direct conversation. And one of the women, the servers who got blessed multiple times by different people, was crying because she had all these medical bills. And all of a sudden, people were just coming and showing forth the goodness of God. It's so simple. It's so simple. And what I've learned is this. In the past, I would tell you, when you do something good for someone, say, I just wanted to show you God's love in a practical way. Here's what I've learned. If I want to see God do something new, then I've got to do something I've never done before. So I'm going to challenge everybody to do that. And I'm going to challenge you to change what I've always taught you to this. I want to show you the love of Jesus in a practical way. Amen. And let's use his name so that they know that it was a follower of Jesus that just showed them the goodness of God. And that's what we do. Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And if our ministry has been a source of encouragement for you, let me encourage you to do two things. Number one, share it with a friend who needs hope. That would make a big difference in their life. Secondly, share it with us. We would love to hear your story. You can send us an email at amen@bridgechurchfl.com. And finally, if you'd like to partner with us financially as we bring hope both locally and around the world, you can do that directly through our website, bridgechurchfl.com/give. And thank you for letting us be a part of your spiritual journey.